I'm Josh.
And I'm Jen. Welcome to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast.
Each episode brings biblical wisdom and practical conversations on parenting, marriage, and family. And we discuss how to disciple the next generation with a biblical worldview.
Whether you're raising children, shepherding a church, or longing to build a legacy of faith in your home, this podcast is for you.
Join us as we explore how to shape hearts, homes, and churches around the gospel, one conversation at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast.
Hey, good to hear you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good, I guess.
Okay, I think you were caught a little off guard there. Good fun. All right, well, today on our episode, we're talking about how to help our children develop and maintain godly, lasting friendships. I love this topic. It's so much fun. Did you have a childhood best friend, Josh?
I don't think I did. I had some friends we moved a lot growing up. I was born in Arizona. Then we moved to Minnesota. Then we moved to Texas. I lived in Arizona 2 years, Texas 2 years, or Minnesota 2 years, then Texas for 7 or 8, and then back up to Minnesota. My parents moved so much that the ability to develop friendships never happened in a consistent. I remember leaving Texas. I was just like right around the middle school age, and I remember crying because I was leaving my friends. But those are elementary school kind of friendships, and they only get so deep in elementary school. And so I came to Minnesota, new school, a couple years, and then my parents changed my school from I was at a Christian school, and then they sent me to a public high school. So then it was all new relationships again.
Yeah.
And so that that really didn't happen in any deep kind of way throughout the childhood years. So I had a couple friends in the neighborhood. We grew up back in the day when you would actually go out, you'd go out and play until the street lights turned on at night, and then that was your time to come in. Or you'd be riding your bikes all over the place. You'd be in people's houses all over. We had two friends in our neighborhood. One was they're both named Michael, and so one was named Big Michael and the other was Little Michael.
Okay.
And those were my closest friends growing up, just down the road we did everything with. And, but that was hard. Moving was that took a toll on us. How about you?
Well, my family also moved quite a bit when I was young. In fact, I was thinking about it that I think I went to between K-12, I want to say it's 8 different schools. I went to a lot of different schools between public school and private school and homeschool, and we moved a little bit. I will say though that wherever I landed, I did make friends. So I remember stand out, my friend Tina from, my days at the Christian school, and my good friend Chrissy from, my middle school, and then friends that I made in high school too. So I think I was good at making friends, but I don't know how good I was at keeping friends. But I think that was just because of pure logistics, right? There wasn't modern communication like we have today. When you're young, you can't really drive. And so, you're dependent on your parents for those things. So I would say I have great memories of times with friends, but I don't think I had a long lasting childhood best friend that I would point to and be that was the person.
Do you have any friendships from childhood that have continued into adulthood?
Let me think.
You had Sunny.
I had my friend Sunny, and she passed away. She became my friend when she was in high school.
Yep.
My friend Chrissy, who I was friends with in middle school, I did kind of hang out with her a little bit, but I would say my most lasting friendships are with my brothers.
Siblings, yeah.
With my siblings. I have a hoot spending time with both of my brothers. They are so much fun. And we were good friends in childhood. And so now, honestly, when I think about who's on my short list that I want to hang out with, both of my brothers are on the short list. Like,
Yeah, the friends.
they're
Yeah.
fun. Your siblings become your best friends.
It's true. Done well.
Yeah.
Done right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had my closest friends ended up being church related in high school.
Yeah.
From our youth group, and that was a real blessing in life.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Many of those individuals, I would say, are either not walking with the Lord or have very different views and values than remember them being raised with today. And so they're just at a very different place in life. And so thankful though for the church.
Yeah.
So friends are wonderful, and they provide, of course, some of the greatest joys, but also some of the greatest challenges that we have in life with ourselves and our children. They can lead to some of the greatest hurts.
Yeah.
And when we think about the most important influences on the life of kids, friends are probably top 5,
Absolutely.
depending on what studies you look at. They end up coming in typically after family, sometimes before education and church, around the media kind of influence level, pretty critical. Of course, the Bible has a ton of things to say about relationships and friendships. Proverbs 27:9 tells us that a sweet friendship refreshes the soul.
That's true.
And we all have times when we need that. And it's such a great encouragement to have those good friends.
Yeah, it is.
And the good thing, though, is I think my parents did a really good job training with some just basic relational skills in our home. And so so my parents were in full-time ministry. That's why we moved a lot. They worked with Campus Crusade, now called Cru. So we were domestic missionaries, which is why we moved across the country. It wasn't just because my parents were like these nomads that wanted to move all around. We understood that as kids, that there was a reason for the sacrifice. But they trained us well relationally, some of these biblical principles, so that when we ended up finally putting down roots, we've been able to develop those great friendships in life now, and it's been very good. But one of the biggest laments that I would hear from parents as a pastor is that their child does not have a close friend. I mean, I hear that all the time from parents, and sometimes it's from families that their child looks like they're very popular and very bubbly and still struggle. I remember one mom coming to me once and saying, my child never gets phone calls. They're not invited to things. And they feel like they're left out a lot. And, that's not that uncommon. And, of course, all of us have varying degrees of success with our kids in these areas, but I think you've done a really good job, Jen, in helping our children develop some godly friendships.
Yeah.
So I would love it if you would take a few moments and just share some of the how that you've approached some of that with our kids.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's something that I've been really intentional with our kids. We homeschool our kids. And so we did identify that we want our kids to have good friendships. And more importantly, we would love our kids to have just like one good friend. Like that was kind of what we started out with. We just want each of our kids to have one good friend. Now, if they end up having a lot of really good friends, that's a bonus. They do have a lot of good friends. Our kids have, I would say, pretty large social circles. But, for a lot of years, especially with each of our children, have been very intentional about honing in who is that one good friend. And starting with our oldest, I kind of had like a plan. I had a little plan. And so sometimes I'll always say like, this is my formula. If your kids don't have great friends, and you follow my formula, like I'll hold up my right hand and I'll be like, I solemnly swear, if you follow this formula, your kid's going to have a friend, because you can't go wrong. So here's my formula, and it has worked wonderfully. I have shared this numerous times with families, and they have all said, this works. This works. So
All right, now I'm really interested. What's
so
this
intrigued
like?
now?
What's the secret
formula?
sauce here, Jenny?
Okay, so the first step is to identify families that you think your kids could be friends with. So that's you as a parent, me as a mom. I would identify who are families in our circle that we see that we rub shoulders with that could be good friends with our kids. So for me, that started out by finding kids at church. It was children in Awana Club that our kids were a part of. It was at our homeschool events. And so I would literally, like, if Jay came home and he said, hey, I like hanging out with Aiden at Awana, I would, as mom, immediately introduce myself to that mom and then invite that mom over. So invite the mom and their kids over. And so what I would do is I would foster a play date. So outside of that setting, invite them over, and I would bake something in the morning. I would bake pumpkin bread. I'd bake something that morning, something that you can throw together. Now, pumpkin bread is the recipe that you can curate for everybody. So are you gluten-free? I can make gluten-free pumpkin bread. Are you dairy-free? Got it. I can make it. So you can adapt the recipe.
That's your secret go-to,
And then I bake.
Nice.
Okay. So then I have everybody over. Mom, if they have other kids, come over. And so we let the kids play. And then there's like a time of letting the kids play and spend time together. And then I get to just like chat with the mom. And in that time, you can kind of identify, like, are we going to be friends? Are we not going to be friends? It's like a weird, almost like a dating thing, you know, they're like, you want that love connection. And at the end of the play date, you know, you keep it short, you know, an hour and a half, put an end time on the invitation, and then see how the kids do. So you're initiating a friendship rather than asking for an invitation. And then afterwards, there's the evaluation. So you can ask your child, how did it go? Did you guys have fun, or did you get like a fist fight? You know, like, how did it go? Nobody gets in a fist fight.
Right?
For boys, right?
Yes. Or the girls, what would be the equivalent be? A little drama match?
I have no idea. Crying. I don't know. So, and you can kind of see. And so I started doing that when our kids were young. The process of inviting and hosting gets so easy once you do it a couple times. It's a skill. You have to kind of get that under your belt, but then it's easy. And so I've always been under the idea that, you know, everybody's welcome at our home. My home is not perfect all the time, so I don't have that like crazy expectation. Like, it doesn't need to be perfectly clean. Nobody's house is perfectly clean.
So you mean people don't come over and be like, I loved being at your house, but your walls were dusty.
Nobody has judged me for like dog. And if they come over and they judge you, those are not your people. Those aren't your people. So afterwards you evaluate. Did you like it? Do you feel like you're aligned with the mom? Do you feel like the kids are aligned? Do you feel like it's a great fit? If yes, then invite them over again or wait for a reciprocal invitation. If it doesn't gel, if you feel like maybe not, then move on. Find somebody else. But over the years, I have probably done this like 1 to 2 hour invitation for a play date and like coffee and pumpkin bread. I don't know how many times have I done that. 100 times.
She did it with me. That's how we got married. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's a simple invitation. It's a text that says, hey, do you want to come over? Come on over. Yep. And so it's a simple invitation and the follow-up. And the thing is that your kids then each can then identify like, oh, I've had this shared relationship with this child outside of our environment. And then when you go back into that class or that environment, they have that shared connection. And then the friendship blooms from there. So largely, one of the best ways to help your kids develop friendships is involving yourself and helping them do that. Mm-hmm. So kind of like I said before, like, you know, I didn't have a lot of great friends, but I didn't drive, you're largely dependent on your parents. Children are dependent on their parents if they want to have a deep friendship. And so we've been intentional about doing that. All of our kids have great friends and sometimes people just need an invitation. Like, you would feel loved if somebody invited you over to their home. And so showing love to other people and part of just like making friends is saying, come on over and come sit in my house. And I don't know about you, but like, I feel good when I go over to somebody's house and they are just kind to me and they're themselves to me. And it doesn't feel like they're putting on a show, but just like this authenticity that says, oh, I'm welcome here with my kids and it's fine and it's great. So that, and then also the idea of just being in one place for a long time. So we've been fortunate to live in Minnesota. We have not moved. Well, we've moved houses.
We've moved houses, but not. We've been in the same.
We've been in the same geographical location, the same church, and so friendships come also with time.
Longevity.
And what we've seen in our kids is that the friendships that they made when they were young, when we were really intentional about inviting people over into our home and establishing those relationships, every single one of those relationships has stood the test of time.
So far, yeah.
And so our relationships that we started, and it's a two-way street. Like I'm going to use Jay and Aiden as an example. They are 19 years old and they're still best friends. And I still love Aiden's mom like a sister. And so starting those friendships when they're young, they have continued. It's Asher and Peter, and it's Kate and Lydia, and those friendships just go on and on and on. So they have other friends too, but those were where I started with each of them. Yep. And it's been just amazing to see.
And wonderful. Yeah. So if I'm summarizing what you say,
that was word salad.
Like it's observe.
Yeah. Identify.
And then initiate.
Yeah, initiate.
Don't be passive.
No.
Like you take the lead.
Take the lead.
Sometimes we just wait, hoping that it'll happen.
Yeah.
And that's been really critical. Hospitality.
Yes.
Like open your home. And then see what God does with.
with it.
That's good.
And you might not be the right fit for them. They might be coming over and being like, I don't know, not a good fit.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, and I will say the longevity one is a pretty critical one.
So
that was really disruptive for both of us. You just heard us say that. So we, as a pastor, I've also seen especially during like the late grade school, teen years, doing a big move across country is pretty disruptive for young people. It was for me, and it took me years to get established back with relationships. So sometimes it's unavoidable, of course, if it's work related. But if it's just preference based, like, I could make another 10, 20, 30 grand with a job at a different place in the country. Like, is it worth it relationally and to leave a good church and a good community?
Yeah.
I'll just speak for us. I can't speak for your personal decisions in your life. Our choice has been, we have a really good church. We've been there for 15 years.
I love it. Phenomenal
community. And we have decided that we're going to make that the center of our family life relationally. And we're going to do everything, unless God, if he's calling us to something different, then we'll be obedient to that. But if it's just a preference choice, and that's been really
great.
Really great. Because now for our kids, like on Sunday morning, because they have such great relationships, not only with others their age, but also with the adults in our church, they can't wait to go to church. It's like,
wait.
I remember we live on a farm and we have a really long gravel driveway. It's about a half a mile long. And there was one night where Minnesota, we get a lot of snow sometimes. And there was one night that a snowstorm started kind of like middle of the night, like
that's how it goes sometimes.
1 a.m., 2 a.m. And, I'm looking at the forecast being like, oh man, we're going to wake up on Sunday morning at like 6, 7 o'clock. And it is going to be, a half a mile. We had just moved to the farm and I didn't have any plowing service or anything. So it was like, I have to clear this a half a mile to get out. And you know what I have? I have a 4-wheeler with a little teeny plow on the front of it. And it snowed like, I don't know, 6 or 7 inches.
That's a lot.
And I'm looking at this going, man, this is going to take like hours to like dig ourselves out of this or whatever. And the kids, I was like, I don't think we can go this morning, guys. It's too much. Yeah. And they were all like, Yeah, I was like,
They love to go to
I'm
church.
like, all right, I'll bite the bullet. Here we go.
Yeah.
We got it cleaned and got to church. It was, there's no such things as small miracles, but it felt like one to get that.
It was a big task.
But part of the driving motivation for them wanting to be there was the relationships that had been developed over the years, and they valued so much. And that has been through intentionality that has happened. So cultivate that, and no guarantees that those will always be great lifelong, but they've been such a blessing.
They've been such a blessing. Yeah.
Such a blessing.
Yeah.
So,
the families, the parents, the other parents pouring into our kids too.
Absolutely. Their parents. Yeah. It's not
Their
just
parents.
It's not just friendships with, typically for our family, it's been whole family friendships, not just with their with
just like
child to child.
Peer.
So we know their parents well, and we have become close friends with the parents as well. And so we do life as families together, which then feeds into their friendships as well. That we genuinely love being together and spending time together. And so just lots of opportunities. As with anything, it takes time to develop strong relationships, and so that that just happens.
But an encouragement that if you're intentional about it and you put yourself out there and do it, you can do it. You can do it.
Let's take a break to thank Renew Nation, the sponsor of this podcast. If you've benefited from the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast, consider making a tax-deductible donation to Renew Nation today. Your generous donations make this podcast and our work to help children develop a biblical worldview possible. If you've enjoyed the episode, you can support us by leaving a review. This helps the podcast grow and reach more families. Now back to the show. All right. Well, let's shift to a different segment here.
Okay, now it's time for a segment that we like to call
Ask Josh and Jen.
Ooh, we've got another question.
All right.
You want me to read it?
Sure, you can read it.
Okay.
There you go.
Here we go. All right, here's the question. It says, we have a few friends that we are working on leading to Christ. We worry about the influence of them on our children sometimes. How can we use this ministry to strengthen our children?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
It's a great question because they're thinking about their own kids while they're also thinking about leading others to Christ. It's a nice, both
evangelism and friendship. How does that work together in those influences? So I would start by saying, I think it's great. We want to train our kids to share Christ with others and to be mindful of the opportunities in that way. I think a great way to do that is to invite those individuals over to your home. And so therefore they're kind of under your watchful eye, or to be involved kind of in your orbit as a family, that you're kind of inviting them into some of what you guys are doing. And then that kind of sets just a precedent around the kinds of behavior that is expected and values, if that's possible. If it's on like a sports team or some kind of activities that these friends are connecting through, then just having a presence there yourself is, I think that's a helpful piece. I also think somewhat about this topic, like I would the kind of the relational principle for marriage not being unequally yoked. So there is I think there is a line where we say the closest friends we want for our kids are Christians. That would be like their core inner circle, and we would encourage that the core closest friends that our kids have are followers of Jesus Christ, kind of that equally yoked principle. But as that moves out to concentric circles, that's where these kinds of relationships fit in. And we need to be, I think we need to be careful. Most Christians, if we're operating according to Scripture, we don't encourage missionary dating.
Nope.
And we want to be careful to encourage missionary friendships as well. And so I think there's some of that happens from more of the acquaintance side of things, that this would fit in more of that category. versus the close friendship piece. So I'm really mindful with children, especially in the formative stages of their life, that evangelism is happening, and it's in part it's to our children, that they are still in the process of even if they have responded to the gospel, they're constantly being formed to decide, do I want to continue to believe this and walk in God's ways? And so, they're, as the Bible says, they're like an olive shoot. They're just, they're sapling essentially, and they're easily bent. And so you can bend a sapling when it's younger, and you can, if you've ever gotten young trees, you literally can bend those branches and they can, it'll send them in the direction that tree goes for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
You can't do that with an older tree, or it's really difficult. And so, because of the power of friendships on children, I think there is wisdom in limiting how much access, time, and what that looks like with non-Christian kinds of friends, and encouraging closest friends Christian, others, but training children to seize the opportunities they have to share Christ with those that they come into contact with. So
I mean, even just thinking too, like it's a good opportunity to help your kids flex those skills of things like sharing the gospel, or identifying what's good, what's right and wrong, and being able to articulate that. And also, like, encouraging our kids, like, I'm so glad you're friends with, Tyler, I don't know his name, or Braden, or whatever his name is. I'm so glad you're friends with him. And we love him so much that we want him to know Jesus, and we're going to share the gospel, and we're going to, show him those things, but also saying, that there's a boundary there. So
this was me growing up, by the way. So I went to a non-Christian public high school, it was Coon Rapids High School about 2,000 students, and there was it was a school of 2,000. I helped lead the Christian club in the school, and it was really small, like 10 kids. Just was not a strong Christian presence in that high school when I was there. So most of the people that I interacted with, in high school were not Christians. They dubbed me Preacher Boy.
Really?
That was my nickname, which I think it was, it wasn't a nice thing to say, but I remember I'd be eating lunch with the soccer team. I didn't play soccer. I was a baseball guy, and they'd be talking about all the stupid stuff they were doing all weekend, partying and drinking and drugs, and I was just like, you guys are dumb. You're dumb. Like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you doing that? And I would interact with that literally every day. It was these kinds of individuals, and I would share the gospel with. I remember Brandon coming to faith in Christ and Matt coming to faith in Christ in high school, and it was because I cultivated those relationships with them. But they were not my closest friends. They were, my friends at church were those that I spent the bulk of my time with, and that was an intentional decision. And my parents did, we would talk about at home with my parents, and we do this with our kids. Help your kids discern some of the good qualities and red flags in their friends. We got to do this carefully. You don't want to feel like you're attacking their friendships
or over-analyzing.
But we can make little subtle comments, or ask a good question.
What did you think about that?
What do you think about? Yeah, kind of bring something to attention. That I remember my parents saying, one of my really close friends at youth group in high school, I remember my parents saying, we've got some reservations, Josh. And I was like, no, this person's awesome. Well, this person has come out since then as transgender and completely hostile to the faith of Christ. And I thought, wow, my parents were pretty discerning about that. I didn't see that. I wasn't old enough to really see that in my teens. And now I'm sure if I, as an adult, look back, I probably could have seen that as well. But those kinds of helping our children see some of the good and the challenging things in a way that they would receive, I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, what are some other things that we can do to help our children develop some lasting friendships? One of them we already talked about. So prioritizing church as the center of relationships. It does just provide a regular rhythm to see your friends. If you're at church on Sunday, if you're at church on Wednesday, if you're at church on Tuesday, I mean, we're at church a lot of days of the
A lot of
week.
days, yeah.
And so if your friends are there, then church kind of becomes that hub. And
It becomes like a flywheel then that you, that you just want to keep, it perpetuates.
does. You just want to keep going. In fact, we were with some good friends last night, and we have kind of the girls and I have gotten into this routine of saying when we leave, when am I going to see you next? And it's kind of fun because now their friends and some of their moms have started asking me, well, when am I going to see you next? And it's like, oh, when are we going to church next? We're going to see everybody. So when we said goodbye last night, we were like, we'll see you on Sunday, so it's that, it's a verbal, it's a verbal thing too there, like this recognition that we're going to see you at church.
So one of the assessment pieces for you to think about as a parent is where does your family life revolve around?
Yeah.
And if it is athletics or academics, friendships tend to form with the individuals in those locations. And then what ends up happening is the individual, those friends will begin to pull our children into the relationships that tend to be outside of church oftentimes. Then they become a competing kind of component with the relationships at a church. And so not that those are, obviously not bad, athletics or academic kinds of things, but, just be mindful if we're putting an emphasis with our kids in all these different things that they're involved in, that's very likely where they'll develop their relationships, and it very well could drive them out of the church.
Yeah, away from the church.
And then they say, I don't have any good friends at church.
I don't want to go.
Part of it's just where we've put, where we've allowed kids to spend their time, and then that generates their friendships as a result.
Yep.
The next one we would say is that the family is a really good training ground for how to develop healthy relationships. Just the kinds of interactions that we have as husband and wife, but also with sibling to sibling and parent to child. That is teaching our kids the kinds of healthy relational principles that they can have right now, but also that they can carry into the adult years. And of course, we could talk about a ton of principles scripturally. Some of our favorite ones are the one another principles.
Yeah.
I think there's 100 plus of those one anoters, bear with one another, forgive one another, serve one another, love one. I mean, they're endless. Yeah. And those we want to take those principles from scripture, and they do need to drive how we function in our relationships. And, sometimes they say nice guys, nice people finish last. That's not true with relationships. If you are a loving, kind, caring person, you tend to have good relationships, and so that of course those come out of scripture. What would another one be, Jen?
Well, just training our kids to identify godly characteristics to look for in friends. And of course, like the book of Proverbs provides so much wisdom about how to identify a good friend and, what having a good friendship would look like, but then also at the same time, what are some of the characteristics of somebody who will not be a good friend? Will that person entice you away from what is good or lure you into, terrible behavior? And so there is so much wisdom in the Bible about finding a good friend, but let's encourage our children to put words to what would a good friend be.
So let's give some examples. The Bible literally says don't spend time with an angry person, a gossip, disobedient, literally don't enter, because as the Bible says, a little leaven goes a long way. We become like the people we spend time with.
Yeah,
and
we sure do.
It's interesting. I don't know if you've ever noticed, have you ever you seen one of your kids who's sweet and caring and kind and generally makes good choices, but then they end up spending time with a certain somebody or certain friends, and they start making really bad choices, and you see, wow, they are being influenced by those individuals, and so that's just, we see that play out even in our own lives. So we don't want to dismiss those kinds of warnings in Scripture. And then there's the flip side, the kinds of people that we want to encourage our children to be around. The godly people, those that fear the Lord, those that are caring and kind, and they're out there. Sometimes it feels like they're hard to find, but they're out there, and they're worth looking for and doing the hard work to cultivate those kinds of relationships. And I think sometimes we just got to put ourselves out there and be like, I'd love my kids to be friends with your kids. And kind of plant that seed.
Let's be friends.
Yep, that'd be great. Yep.
Yes. What's another one, Josh?
We've really prioritized our home as a center. You mentioned it a little bit, as a place for relationships to develop. There's power in homes like there isn't in other places. So of course parks are fine and restaurants are fine, but when we're at our table, when we're doing things in a home, it just carries a different level of engagement and interaction. And so we've communicated with our children that our home is always open, that their friends are always welcome. We have really prioritized having great drinks and wonderful food
in the little drink
available. There's, food is a secret weapon.
Yeah.
Find out what your kids and their friends like.
Yep.
And make it available. We really prioritize eating healthy, organic, whole, raw foods. And even in doing that, there's really, really wonderful, Jen, we buy mostly ingredients, not processed foods. So Jen will bake a lot and we'll cook a lot. And those kinds of it's like you eat that stuff, it's like, it's so good. It's and we have individuals come over often because of that.
Yeah.
And we've been really intentional to plan and create things that are on a yearly rhythm that we do with our kids and oftentimes then with their friends.
Yeah.
So I'll just mention a few of those so you can see. This wasn't a plan. Like, we didn't have this master plan, but
we
it's
didn't
turned
have this mapped
this.
out, but it kind of turned into this.
When my sons were little, we just called it a father-son camp out. That was 12 years ago or something. They're in their kind of early
Itty-bitty
grade school years. And so we invited a handful of dads and their sons, and we literally threw tents up in the backyard. This was the Friday night of Memorial Weekend till noon on Saturday. And we did a bunch of it's all guy stuff. It's super fun stuff.
Yeah.
And we did that. And it's in my head, I was like, that's a one and done thing. And the next year's my boys were like, are we doing the father-son camp out? And I kind of like, I don't know. It's a lot of work in my head. They're like, come on, Dad. So we have been doing that for 12 years. And there's a pretty big group of guys that come. My dad comes, their grandfather, and they're still wanting to do it. My son's he's in college now, our oldest, and he still wants to do it. Their college friends are coming. It's great. We do different kinds of guy things, but we do still a lot of great guy stuff. So father-son camp out. We do a flag football league that we've done a couple of years on Friday nights in the fall. We do that for about eight weeks. We have felt sometimes that the best way to get our kids involved in sports, we miss backyard. Kids don't have the chance to do backyard sports like we did growing up. You just get a pickup game in with neighborhood kids, and so we kind of have done that with fathers and sons. It's just a fun kind of thing. We do a fantasy football league with our sons and their friends. We do Christmas baking parties. Sledding in the yard, ringing the Salvation Army bell. Jen does that with.
We've done a lot of bingo nights.
A lot of
bingo nights.
And 5 years ago, we started what we call the Man Co and the Woman Co, and father, son, mother, daughter discipleship groups that we meet September through May. And we just kicked our group off here this fall, our 5th year for the guys, the 4th for the ladies. That's it's a group of their friends, fathers, and daughters and mothers, and that has been a huge blessing. But we do these kinds of yearly rhythms now, and these feed into the friendships that they have, and their friendships are deep and they're impactful and they're wonderful. As Jen said, we are really grateful for them.
Yeah.
All right, last piece, healthy friendships, Jen. They're not the goal, they're a byproduct.
Yeah.
Where do healthy friendships come from?
Healthy friendships are just a direct reflection of our own relationship with Jesus Christ and our love for him. So when we love him, we then have the ability to love others. It's the gospel is our map. The gospel is our mirror. And so as we point our kids towards a relationship with Jesus Christ, we're pointing them towards then sharing that love with the people around them. And so that is, that's the goal. That's the goal. It's loving God, and then as a result, loving others.
I'll end this one with a quote by C.S. Lewis. He said it this way: "When I have learnt to love God better than my earthly dearests, I shall love my earthly dearest better than I do now, insofar as I learn to love my earthly dearest at the expense of God, and instead of God, I shall be moving towards the state in which I shall not love my earthly dearest at all." So when first things are put first, second things then are suppressed, and but they are then increased when God is at the forefront. And so love God, love others. That's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, good deal.
All right.
Well, I hope this was helpful for some of you guys.
Thanks for joining
Get out
us.
there, have some people over this week.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Gospel Shape Family Podcast. Please share this episode and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.